I want to make sure that the people that deliver for me, deliver in a space that is conducive for them to deliver. People must want to come to work. People must want to deliver for you because of the value that you bring to them.
For you. There comes a point where people are like, I'll go to war for this one.
That's it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Organizational Behaviour with Siphiwe Moyo. I think that's how I do the intros every time. Hello, everybody. So my name is Siphiwe Moyo. I'm the Executive Director of the Organisational Behaviour Institute. Today we have an exceptional guest. His name is Xolani Zikalala. We call him X. He's the Executive Head of Financial Crime and Compliance somewhere. That's how we're keeping it. Somewhere. Shall not mention you here. So he's a husband, he's a father. I took that from, I think, your Twitter profile that you do highlight that. Your husband, father, servant leader, and a recent MPhil graduate. Where's that poo? Our podcast. Yes! I thought, what's going on with our podcast? So today we're going to have a fascinating conversation about servant leadership, and then we'll try and figure out its impact on some of the organizational behavior outcomes. It's going to be an amazing chat. Before that, though, we have a new feature in the podcast where at the beginning of every show, I just highlight any paper that I've been reading on organizational behavior research. It's either new or at least it's new to me. The one that I found fascinating recently, it's called Ramifications of Leaders' Unethical Pro-Organizational Behavior on Employees, the Dual-Stage Moderation of Ethical Mindset. It's written by Yahua Chai, Wehi Zheng, Sebastian Chua, and Xiaowen Lin. I think they are from somewhere. I'm not sure. Maybe, I don't know, somewhere in the East. And what I found interesting about this paper, so it measures something called UPBs, which is unethical pro-organizational behavior, unethical pro-organizational behavior, on the impact of that on employees. So what they find is that the study explores how the unethical pro-organizational behavior of leaders impact employees in an interesting way. So, for example, when leaders do wrong things that are seen to be wrong but are benefiting the organization, employees also think, it's okay to do those things. So it sets a precedent. So where you are doing wrong things, but it's regarded as for the good of the organization, then employees just feel they must do it. And then they have this something called moral disengagement, where the employees then do wrong things, but they can justify it because everybody else is doing it. So before we even go to our chat, what's your initial thought about that?
Listen, I think leaders set the tone from the top. That's important. What you do as a leader right on top filters down to the people.
Absolutely.
So ultimately, if you do wrong things and you spin them off as being acceptable, there might be resistance initially from the lower ranks, but ultimately people will start seeing it, believing it's right, and ultimately adopting it.
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, then let's get to know our guest. We've already introduced you a little bit,
sure.
But maybe for our listeners and viewers, could you share a bit more about your background? Who is X? Where thou cometh from? I love using King James a little bit.
Where art thou from?
Where art thou from? That's what it should say. Where art thou from?
Sure.
Just a bit about you.
So, Siphiwe Mfethu, outer Sekasi. Mfume Shawela.
Sure.
I was born in Zola.
Okay.
Kahle.
Zola? One.
North.
Okay.
North. Nkhulele Mfulo, a bit Ekwezi, and then when I was 2, mom and dad got a house at Shawela. I've got 3 siblings, 2 sisters. I'm the third one. Then there's a younger one that came after me. Nkhulele Kasi Mfethu went to a school in Soweto, and then high school we found a school in Zinhle, Highlands North. My aunt was a big influence in terms of that, so did high school at Highlands North. And then went to UJ. After that, initially it was TWR, and then changed to UJ. Studied banking. Did a bachelor's in business management. started working in the mix and, grew in my career, basically. I'm a married man. I've got a beautiful wife of many, many, many years. I've got two beautiful girls, and one young man who keeps me busy all the time, But yeah, that's me. Recently graduated from AUJ, completed my master's degree in it's an MPhil in professional and personal leadership, and yeah, that's me, Mfethu.
What I loved, Mfethu, with your recent studies, and you seem to have a deep interest in servant leadership, which is very interesting for someone who has a technical, banking, financial, crime, compliance background. Why such an interest in something that others would call an organizational behavior or HR topic? Where does that come from?
That's a key question, and I'll tell you what happened. Maybe it's a story to that. I'm sitting down at the office one day with a colleague of mine, and we are doing a check and challenge, on a particular report. And, she's challenging me about certain aspects of the report, and I'm defending the report, and there's a back and forth between me and this particular colleague of mine. And then she stops out of nowhere. Like, she just pauses conversation, looks me straight in the eye, and says to me, X, you're in the wrong profession. I'm like, what do you mean? She says, you should be in HR, actually, And then I pause. I'm like, how? We're debating a report which is, due for Exco in a couple of days, and now you're shifting from that to this particular topic. What is going on? Sure. And she says to me, X, the way you deal things and the way you're engaging me on this check and challenge, and the way that I've just experienced you as a colleague, as someone that I deal with on a continuous basis, is that there is something about you that is very people-focused, right? You the way you engage with people, the way that you engage me. And then she gets into the way that you are bringing your points across to me and how you are disagreeing with what I'm saying to you, and you're making me feel good about myself.
Yeah.
And she says to me, I'm vus. She says, she's very vus, and I fight with people. And, when I've got a point, I'm quite stern about a point, and it's very hard to shift me from my approach and how I see things. But you manage to get me to think differently about everything I do, And I think her point was to say that your approach, as much as you're a professional and you are a technical person and you're a compliance person, you've got a different approach to a lot of compliance people. Compliance is regulatory, it's law, it's fixed, you either do this or that type of thing, But I've had to find a way to bring in the people element and the people aspect to what I do. And I think one of the reasons is because I just believe in people. I believe in servant leadership. I believe in people putting people ahead of me. I believe that people matter, And even the way that I approach things and people and debates and discussions, I focus on the people, but I want to make sure that the people walk away feeling good about themselves, regardless of how difficult and how challenging the discussions are or the debates are, So it's uncommon. I agree that someone like me would do what I've done, But I guess it comes from just the depth that is in me and in my heart around people, around leadership, and around maybe exploring what is not traditional. Because in corporate, in the financial sector specifically, we're all about targets, we're all about regulation, we're all about delivery, and if you think about servant leadership, you might think, but that's not relevant for the field that you're in, So why would you do that? And I argue differently. I say it's extremely relevant because even in delivery, even in shareholder value, and even in regulatory requirements, there's people behind that.
True.
And there's people that have to deliver value for the firm, And if the people are for the firm and people, buy into the firm and people understand the vision, then you'll get the people to deliver.
Wow.
Ultimately, results will come from the people. And how you treat the people determines how far you go as a firm. And that's just my approach around this.
I love it, Mfethu, and I'm a bit conflicted by by the comment by your colleague, because on the one hand, it's obviously a compliment. Uguti, you are such a great leader, a people-centered leader. On the other hand, the other way to look at it is also the fact, Uguti, it means that particular skill of being able to get results through and with people, it's so absent that by her looking at that skill from a technical person, she feels good you must probably go to HR, because that skill is quite absent in the technical people that are running banks. But the argument that I would have is that, and that you are having, Uguti, organizations would actually be better if every leader was like that. So it's a compliment, but at the same time, it's a cry. Uguti, we are not seeing that from others.
It is. I took it as a compliment, without a doubt. But I'm also quite aware. I'm very awake to the fact that, leadership. We've got a vacuum in leadership. Organizations are thriving, and if you think about what you see in corporate today, I mean. And it's across the board. You see a lot of people who are burned out, people who are on the verge of breakdown, people who are highly stressed, in fact, And it's because there's demands that come with corporate, right? I mean, you would know that. But also, there's a leadership vacuum in that leaders are driving so much for results. And we're driving for the bottom line. And that's the right thing to do, by the way. So I'm not disputing that. But I think we just need to step back sometimes and look at, how do I get to those results? As a leader, what am I doing from the top to ensure that I deliver on what I'm supposed to deliver on, but I don't kill the fiber of the organization, which is the people in the organization, in the process of that, And I think what I'm seeing of late is that we want to achieve results at all cost. And all cost includes people. And people, because we are desperate, because times are tough, because the economy has turned around, people will stick around. And people will really kill themselves in the jobs they have, just for their livelihood. So Mina and I think there's other leaders, there's other good leaders, like there's many good leaders who are saying, let's still deliver. But let's just get to an awareness around how we do it. And
do you still get the results?
You still do.
Is it?
Certainly. The argument that people have is that leadership servant leadership will not get you results. Being people focused will compromise, the output that you get. Being someone who's empathetic, someone who is understanding, will certainly compromise what you have to deliver. I totally disagree. In fact, the research shows that when you are people focused and when you put people at the core, at the front, and when people's well-being is taken care of, and when wellness is really a top agenda for you, the ultimate outcome is that the firm does better in the long term. People who bring a good sense of themselves to the office will give you everything. They will work when they don't want to work. They will work when things are difficult. They will work when the environment says don't work, But because you've worked on the people and because you've built the people up and because you've put them in the forefront, they will want to put the firm in the forefront. And you then get results as a servant leader who is for the people.
All right, so you've already hinted about the servant leader, and for someone who's really listening, maybe who may not be familiar, could you please just define what servant leadership is? Maybe outline its key principles in just high level.
So high level, servant leadership is really about it's about one thing. It's about people. Just simply put, Greenleaf coined this particular term in the 70s, and he said, servant leaders put people first.
Sure.
That's what servant leadership is about. There's many aspects to what goes into it, right? But ultimately, you serve people. Ultimately, the people that you lead should become servants themselves. So it becomes a continuous cycle of some sort. Servant leadership is about making sure that you focus on the growth and the development of the people that you lead. So putting them first is not saying that you just say yes to every single thing, but you're almost steering them towards a specific path of growth, a specific path of development. But you also create community, whether it's in an organization, in a department, in a business unit, so that whatever we do as people in that organization, in that business unit, is towards community, towards the enrichment of everybody who's in the firm. Servant leadership is about setting a vision that everybody will work towards. And when you're asking me to say, do you then deliver? And I say, definitely you do, because one of the traits of servant leadership is that you define the deliverables from the onset.
Okay.
You talk about what are we here to do? What are we supposed to deliver? What is the focus of what we're supposed to do? And you make everybody understand the imperative to deliver. You get them onto the same boat, sort of, and you hold them accountable. Which is, I mean, I'm going ahead here, but it's a myth that people have. Servant leaders, have got a weakness about them because they're subservient. Far from the truth.
Really?
Far from the truth. You actually set boundaries. You set objectives. And when there is failure to deliver objectives, you bring them back to the objective to say, but Siphiwe, we agreed on 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
It is not done. Why is that not done? But the approach in which you do it is different.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying to you? So instead of, maybe dragging the person and the individual down, you focus on, but this was the objective. The firm has to achieve this. If you don't do these things, we'll not achieve the objective.
So maybe the word servant creates a wrong impression.
It does. And, it's funny enough, as part of the research, I actually found that when I was talking to people in the space that I'm in, and I was asking them if they practice servant leadership. The answer was no, we don't. But when you ask questions differently, and you ask them what is leadership to you, you're amazed that actually what they're saying and some of the things that are coming out of them around what leadership is actually points to leadership. So people practice servant leadership, but people are not aware that they're doing it. Because people ultimately, or some people would put people first. People are some people might be very empathetic. People are quite visionary. People are very firm in terms of setting objectives and making sure that everybody understands. People, practice the whole concept of bringing the voice of the employees and the entire team to the fore, not just their voice. And those things are all principles of servant leadership. So it's amazing that we are doing it, but we are not aware that we're doing it. So maybe the term then is a bit misleading. And maybe the term is not well understood. And for me, one of the reasons why I found interest in this was precisely that, because as part of my modules that I did in my MPhil, we did professional leadership, and we went through a couple of leadership theories, and there was authentic leadership, the great man theory, leader-member exchange approach, and many of those, and then I initially thought authentic leadership is the thing for me initially, because I felt good. Corporate is so difficult and it's so tough, and we lose who we are in corporate. There's certain expectations that people have of you as a leader, that you have to show up in a particular way, you have to speak in a particular way, you must even dress in a particular way, and those things, good as they are, might compromise your authentic self, because I have to almost conform to a particular norm, which is not wrong in itself, but sometimes we lose ourselves in that, So personally, I wanted to do authentic leadership, to be honest with you, But then I came across servant leadership. And when I started unpacking it and I started looking into the norm, and this is something that we probably need to unpack a bit more,
so true,
understand a bit more, practice a bit more, and probably embed a bit more, but also demystify some of the negativity that maybe sits around servant leadership, because there's a lot of negativity, whereas it is so positive, and so broadly practiced, but unawarely so.
It's interesting because maybe as you are speaking, I'm thinking there probably are people in corporate who who are listening to this now and says, this thing actually resonates with me. I want to be people-centered. I want to cast a vision. I want to hold people accountable, but do it in a people-centered way. But maybe they have fears that maybe people won't listen to me and will not take me seriously unless I conform to the traditional or maybe the expected way of authoritative leadership. Do you think there are fears that maybe if I'm people-centered, or they won't even listen to me?
You're spot on with it. I think there is a fear. I mean, even in me doing this research, I had to convince myself with to go do research on charismatic leadership or transformational leadership. What is the servant leadership that you want to do? But there is, I guess where there is ignorance, you are bound to start thinking all sorts of things, and fear would be one of them. To say that there is pressure in corporate to conform. There's pressure to belong, and there's pressure to want to deliver. But besides that, you also have organizational sort of settings that you have, which you have to consider, and the fear aspect comes from, what if I fail? What if I take this approach that is people-centered and I can't get people over the line? What then? What if I don't get buy-in from top of the house? What then? What if I'm people-focused and I drive people and I develop people and they leave, and I don't get a return on investment from those people, etc. And those things can happen. Those things are bound to happen. Does it mean that the fear that you have around what if and around what if it's not accepted must now make you not to do it? Ultimately, my view is that you deal with people. People wanna be taken care of. I mean, I know as a young sort of person that's coming into corporate, I wanted to succeed in corporate. I wanted to do great things. I wanted to put myself out there, but I also wanted to know that I've got leaders who take care of me, leaders who have an interest in me, and I guess I moved up the ranks because of the leadership that I had around me, but people who believed in me, people who almost honed me and guided me, directed me. I want to maybe reflect on a story quickly, if you don't mind.
Please.
I remember in one of the firms that I used to work for, one of the banks, many years ago, we had a Section 189 exercise that was done, and it was impacting the entire bank was impacted, but our business unit at that time was a huge business unit that supported the frontline staff, the branch network, the business banking centers, private banking centers. So, but we're head office based, and there were a lot of people in the structure that were impacted by the Section 189 exercise, And because it was a firm-wide exercise, you'd get sort of hear ramblings from other business units around how the process is unfolding in their spaces. It's not fair. There's no communication. The leaders are not saying anything to them. We had, one of the best leaders that I worked under at that time, at that point. And this man is a servant leader at heart. Who delivers. This man has done significant things in his career. In banking and where he is now, he would call us in. Obviously, communication was important at that time. So he'd call us in on a continuous basis to give us updates, to tell us this is where we are in the process, this was happening in the process. There's 2 more weeks to go. We must do interviews. We'll advertise whatever positions are available from the exercise, etc. And then there'll be times where he'll just call us in and say, "Team, I've got no feedback for you, but I'm just calling you in just to check in on you, and just to see if you guys are okay." There's no feedback, and I reflected and I said, but this man or this leader knows how to put people in the forefront. Servant leader who knows how to drive vision, who knows how to get people to deliver, who is very people focused, and very charismatic also, very liked amongst the people that he leads. And no fear to say, let me call the people in and say to them, I've got no feedback for you. You call them in and you just want to assure them. And at the end of the exercise, you can imagine, 189 is a difficult exercise. At the end of it all, we were so satisfied around how the process unfolded. There were casualties. It was very sad to see people go, but I guess the leader just made it a bit better.
Yeah.
The people focus and the fact that, there were just continuous engagements and discussions just made it very, very palatable for a lot of us at that point, So, I'm saying, yes, people will have fears to say, what if it doesn't work? What if it's not accepted? And I want to say, but what if it works? What if it's accepted? What if you build the strongest team or the strongest teams? What if you get the best results? What if, So there's fears, but if you're going to focus on those fears, you will not get anything done.
That's such an incredible. Because I was going to ask you to tell me maybe about instances or examples where you've seen this live, because I guess people would want to know whether this stuff works. And that's such a great example of transparency.
Yeah.
And even saying, I'll tell you what I know now. I'm even calling you to say, I don't know more. This thing is still happening somewhere.
Yeah.
And I don't know more. So that's great. If there is any other example that you want to share, or maybe just reflect on, what do you then think are the benefits of having this? I guess it's a non-traditional leadership approach. The servant leadership. Can other organizations maybe benefit from adopting it? And maybe you can juxtapose that with other misconceptions. I think you've already gone to the misconceptions.
Sure.
Just anything you want to share around any other examples, or maybe the benefits associated with it.
So certainly, I spoke to some of the benefits already.
Absolutely.
So I'll just go back to, obviously people who are taken care of bring their best selves to the firm, to the organization. That's one thing. People are skilled out there. Siphiwe. You've got an amazing depth of skilled individuals that are working for us in the organizations. And sometimes because we are so non-aware of what is around us, we don't even realize how critically skilled people are.
Yeah.
But you want to get the best out of people, right? And when you get the best out of people, you are bound to achieve many other things in this changing world, in this digitally enabled world, and where we're going to. There's so much that people can bring to the party. One of the benefits of servant leadership is that when people bring their best, ultimately the firm will benefit. Ultimately, the firm, you will feel it in the bottom line. I think what happens is maybe it might take a bit of time as you entrench, servant leadership, as you get people to understand what servant leadership, as you get people to buy into servant leadership. Ultimately you will see the results. Well-being is something that is very topical of late. Servant leadership ensures that people come in and they wellness is entrenched in the organization. Well-being is a key focus. I want to make sure that the people that deliver for me, deliver in a space that is conducive for them to deliver. People must want to come to work. People must want to deliver for you because of the value that you bring to them.
For you. There comes a point where people are like, I'll go to war for this one.
That's it. And that's what I've experienced leaders like that. And again, to your earlier point, people don't know that they're practicing leadership because servant leadership because you don't say it out.
Yes.
But there's leaders where I've personally said, I will go to war for this person. This leader, I will go down with them in the trenches because of who they are to you, but because of how they've showed up, because of how they've put the people agenda ahead of everything else, because of how they've just managed you as a person, because of how they've just been so interested in your growth and development. One of the benefits is that when people grow and when people develop, people, become their better selves. I know that as an early sort of banker in the early years, I was very, benginomlilo, but umlilo that's just spreading everywhere type of thing, But as you grow into this thing, people come along your way, leaders that will almost mold you, that will just, help you how to navigate and how to deal things and how to have perspectives that are different from yours. People who will give you a bird's eye view of the organization and people who will take you in the breadth of what's happening in the different pieces of the firm, you know. And those things and those people have really helped me to be able to grow as an individual, you know. That is servant leadership. So the benefits are that you grow, you buy into the firm, you give your all to the firm. And if you get a lot of people doing that, ultimately the firm benefits. Ultimately, results are delivered. Ultimately, there is value for the shareholder. Ultimately, you know, you even outperform. You even get to a point where you're not even just performing, but you're literally outperforming because you've applied some of the principles that are sitting in leadership. And those are the benefits that you have with this.
I'm curious, X, in your current role, which is technical, which you have to be hard, which you can't play around with compliance. I mean, in a financial services, you lose your license to play. Surely there is no room to infuse servant leadership principles in your day-to-day responsibilities. Can you share with me how you do that?
So I've got oversight over the financial crime team in corporate and investment banking, but I also look after the same team in the rest of Africa.
Okay.
So all the operations that are outside of Africa, of SA specifically in the different countries. You know, it's the people that are working for us are highly skilled technical individuals who know sometimes even more than you as the leader.
True.
I'm very comfortable with that, by the way, because I don't have to know everything. I've got a very competent team that helps me, and I help them to deliver. That's what we do, you know. My approach is that, to your point, regulation, you cannot, there's no partial compliance. You know, you comply or you don't comply. You lose your license, you get a fine. So it's a very regulated space. There's no space for doing things that are just not defined in that space, you know. So ultimately you have to deliver. And my role is to ensure that we deliver on the compliance mandate that we have, which is to protect the bank from losing the license or from getting fines, etc. The thing is, it's people who deliver that. You know, you don't have a machine that will keep your license for you in a safe. People have to do work to ensure that there's controls in place, that there's policies, that the policies are delivered, that there's training on the policies, etc. You know, so my approach to my job is to say, let me understand where the people are. Let me understand what the people bring to the party. Let me enable the people to do the best that they can do. And I do it by talking to people. You know, I do it by building relationships with the teams that I lead, especially those that are not close to me, you know, those that are in the countries, for instance, you know, one-on-one discussions that I have with them, you know. And when I talk to them about, you know, do you understand the gravity of your role? Do you understand that if you don't do what you're supposed to do, this is what the consequences are going to be? You know, do you understand that, you know, our livelihood as a bank is dependent on what you do as part of your role? Do you understand that we've got access to international markets for FX because other banks trust that our processes are robust enough? If you drop the ball as, you know, X in country X and as Y in country Z, you know, what it means is that what we have will disappear. So that's my approach. I make people understand what they're supposed to do. I make people understand what the consequences are if they don't do what they're supposed to do. But also it helps that, you know, you lead senior people who are very well entrenched in what they do. People who will also challenge you. My people challenge me, and I welcome it to say, but X, you know, we hear you, but we don't agree with you. We think it can be done in a different way. And I welcome all of that because it helps me to grow, but it helps me to have different perspectives from different people as well, you know. So my approach is to say, let's engage. My approach is to say, let's talk about things. My approach is to say, there's an open door policy. You are welcome to challenge me. I don't have all the answers. There's things I don't know. If I don't know, you and I are going to find out together, and we'll get to the bottom of it. You know, so that's how I approach my job. Is it easy? No. Does it happen automatically at times? No. Is it very challenging? Yes, it is, you know, but I'm just determined. But I guess maybe my last point is it helps that people know me for who I am. They know Xolani Uso. They know that this guy shows up like this. They know that this person has got our backs. Even if something has been done which is a mistake, or something was done, not in the right way, I will talk about it, we'll discuss it, but I will not demean you in the process. We will highlight how significant the challenge is, and we'll talk about what the consequences could be if this thing happens again, but not focused on you as a person, but on the act itself and how that should not happen. So that's what I apply in my day-to-day.
So you can still hold people accountable without demeaning their... Which is incredible. Thank you, X. By the way, congratulations on completing your MPhil, focusing on servant leadership. It's really, really great. It's an incredible qualification.
Yep.
Would love to know what are some of the key insights or discoveries you made during your research that maybe are influencing or may influence your professional approach.
So, one of the key findings that I found, Siphiwe, is that as much as I did a study on servant leadership, for organizations to succeed, servant leadership for me is the bedrock of what needs to be implemented, right? But there has to be a mixture of different approaches. One of the key findings was that, for you to succeed as an organization, and I also found that there's many organizations that are quite prominent, like Starbucks, and Southwest Airlines in the US, that actually apply servant leadership. But when you delve into them, you find that servant leadership is the bedrock. It's like the foundation, but they actually apply other leadership approaches as well. So it's a combination of approaches that are sitting on the principles and the values of servant leadership that would then make for your ideal leadership posture as a firm. It was a key finding. You cannot say, I will only apply servant leadership and that's it, nothing else, and I'll still succeed. It's not that. It's take from here, take from there. The people agenda is central to everything that you do. And if that is the key focus, you're bound to succeed. So I'm keen to do further research, to see the applicability of servant leadership in the context of the African culture. Because my research was around an FI, but not in that context. But maybe when we do further studies, we'll probably focus on that. But it was interesting to find out that don't take this approach alone. Take it, infuse it with other approaches, and see what the outcome will be. But the bedrock and the foundation is the people focus and putting people at the center of what you do.
I love that, because obviously people who study situational leadership would argue that you lead differently depending on the situation and sometimes depending on the maturity of that particular team member. There are certain team members where you give them a little bit more autonomy because that's what they crave and that's what they need. There are other team members where they might need a little bit more structure. So that situational leadership is called upon. But I like the fact that the people agenda and the servant leadership remains the bedrock. So no matter how fluid or how much you vary your leadership, you always have that in mind. That's such a key finding.
Spot on.
It's interesting because I'm imagining, and I don't know, that in some of our conferences, so I spend a lot of time in HR and organizational behavior conferences where it's us speaking to ourselves. I'm imagining it would be great to hear from someone who comes from a technical background and giving us a bit of case studies on how this thing works in reality and how the drum that we keep banging from our side is sometimes lands even better from a non-HR leader. And I think that would be so interesting too. I'm assuming you take invitations and so on. If someone is listening, book him. Okay, he's not a speaker, but I'm sure we can twist his arm.
He's not a speaker. He's not a speaker.
No, but guys, Tato, there's Tato sitting that side, guys, just in case. I mean, when you hear this, are you not convinced to go to X can?
I can book him.
Yeah, you could if you can.
Yeah, can I just jump in even there?
Oh, come to the mic though if you want to jump in. You can't ask. Come use my mic. So guys, Tato works with me at the Organisational Behaviour Institute.
Yeah. All right, Tato here. So I just have one question for you. How do we teach South African leaders. I mean, I know that we are coming from African contexts whereby our backgrounds are mostly harsh, and we are not really used to servant leadership. So how do you really teach South African leaders to be servant leaders and embrace it? Because from my understanding and observations, I can see that a lot of the leaders in the corporate are not more of leaders, but bosses. So how do you teach South African bosses to embrace servant leadership and also exercise it in the corporate?
You know, Tato, it's amazing that you asked that question. I had a discussion yesterday with my supervisor, actually, because we're talking about PhD, and she's trying to steer me towards something. I'm like, hey, I'm making just need to
Let me breathe a bit.
Let me just perform a bit. You know, but you know what she said to me was to say that, you know, we need more research actually around what you're talking about. You know, if you look at the SA context, servant leadership is practiced. If you go to NPOs, for instance, and if you go to political parties, for instance, if you go to churches even, you know, the predominant sort of approach that you find in those organizations is servant leadership. If you go to corporate, it is not the case. Or if it is practiced unknowingly. So, you know, and she was saying to me, would we not be in a better spot where we actually start, you know, making people more aware? So you bring it to the fore. You talk about what the benefits of it are. You demystify what people perceive it to be. You talk about some of the challenges that it has, you know, and you put it out there, and you let people choose, you know. And then we got into the fact that, you know, SA is now transitioning in a way where it's amazing that a lot of black leaders specifically are now who are quite humanistic in their approach to leadership initially, are now becoming a bit more authoritative, whereas, you know, a lot of other races who are probably in the middle and the lower leadership levels, you know, are becoming a bit more humanistic. So you're seeing a turnaround, you know, and I guess transformation will do that when the corporate has to reflect the communities that you live in. You know, you'll start seeing some of those things coming up. You know, but that for me is actually an area of research that we need to delve into to see how we can make it even more applicable in the corporate context, but make it known, make it understood. But ride on the benefits of it. Once people see the benefits of servant leadership, I tell you, it's a no-brainer. It will be accepted. But just to step back in, if you go back to political formations that we have, if you go to a lot of NPOs that practice servant leadership, some of them have been in existence for years and years and years. Churches that we have, existence for years and years and years, you know, and they're still there. They're still thriving because of practicing servant leadership. Again, putting people before anything else, you know. So I think there's merit in that. I think there's probably more research needed in that field. But the research is just to make people more aware, understanding the benefits, demystifying what is understood and what is incorrect out there. But I think there's certain value in that.
All right. Thank you.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay. I think as we nudge ourselves to a close, and a great question, Tatu, as we nudge ourselves to a close, so let's say someone is listening to this, they're in emerging leader in corporate, and they're inspired by this conversation, and they think, hey man, I think I aspire to incorporate these leadership principles like servant leadership into maybe non-traditional fields. What advice would you give them, considering what you've told us about it and some of the misconceptions and what do you think, generally, what advice do you have?
So maybe three things. Number one is know yourself as a person. I think what works for me is that I know who I am. I understand myself to a large extent, but know who you are, know what your makeup is, you know. Know the field that you want to go into, because that's quite important. You know, like you're asking me, banking is regulated, licenses. You don't do certain things, you die. You don't do certain things, you lose your license. You know, but understand the field that you're going into. If it is the financial world, you know that certain things can be done. If it is educational sector, you know that, so know what you want to go into, but also understand leadership, understand what things you lean towards. And for me, one of the biggest ways to do that is to do a lot of reading. Read about leadership, listen to podcasts on leadership, observe leadership, attend leadership conferences, get yourself involved. I mean, one of the things that I did very early on in my career as PO was that I got myself involved. I mean, I was a teller. I started off as a teller in a bank many years ago. And the other day, there was an issue, and they were saying, we just want someone to train the tellers on customer service. Here I am, teller myself, training other people. I just volunteered, and those things just set you apart, But there has to be initiative that you have as a person. Nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody is going to, propel your career to the heights that it should be. It's you and what you do, but finding yourself in the right spaces, knowing who you are, be firm about what works for you. Don't just go with everything that is out there. I maybe I've got the luxury now at my level to be firm about what works for me. I'm quite stand up, but I can stand for this. I won't stand for this. Maybe earlier on you don't have that luxury. But set boundaries from the onset around who you are. Let people know who you are, but also talk about what you want to do. What I did as a young person in banking, as a teller, was that I spoke to people. I spoke to the branch manager. I spoke to leaders, and I said, I want to do this.
Sure.
And when opportunities came, people remember. Man, Siphiwe said this to us one time, and we've got this. Maybe he's the right person for this. And that's how most of my moves in the sector have been that. That I'm there, putting myself out there, I'm reading, I'm proactive, I talk about what I want. And when opportunities come, you are most likely to be the person. It's not a perfect science. It doesn't always work like that. But it worked for me. And, my advice to people is just know yourself, know what you want, read. The area that you want to go into, read, and read.
That's so great. I can't believe we've run out of time. But
Sure.
but thank you very much. Maybe last question, and then you will wrap this up with your final thoughts. What do you see maybe as the future of leadership? So if you put Ilona, I'm a fairy cake, particularly maybe in industries like banking or maybe other. What do you think is the future? How do you think concept like servant leadership will evolve and become prominent? Just in closing.
So what I see a space where leaders have to be agile. Agility is the name of the game, right? You have to know how to adapt. You have to be adaptable as a leader. As much as you're a servant leader, as much as you put people first, you will not succeed into the future if you're not adaptable, if you're not agile. And innovation is a key thing. It's amazing how in banking now, if you think about what I do, for instance, you might think it's financial crime, and you might think it's KYC. There's so much AI that goes into what we do. There's so much use of data and things that I didn't study traditionally, Siphiwe, that I'm having to learn now in order to keep myself relevant in my role. So the future of leadership is that you just have to be innovative, you have to be agile, and you have to be flexible. But there's also this concept of sustainability. That what you do has to be sustainable, whether it's around the organization, whether it's around sustainability of the people that you have around you, it's around the values, it's around the environment. But sustainability is a very key thing of late. But also, this whole concept of ethical leadership, right? With where the world is going to, leaders have to be ethical. And, this is what I see on the horizon in terms of what the focus should be now and what the focus will be in the long term into the future. If those things can be mastered, if people can focus on some of those things and maybe even study in these fields, you are almost setting yourself up for viability into the future.
X, thank you so much for coming through. It's been an absolute pleasure. Congratulations on your studies.
Thank you.
Thanks for inspiring us that concepts such as servant leadership can actually work in non-traditional, in very technical and very demanding areas. So we really, really appreciate you. I don't know if you interact a lot on LinkedIn. If people think, I want to hear from this guy a little bit more, is there anything like that? I know corporate executives don't want to give out any of those things. Do they find you on LinkedIn or do they not?
I am on LinkedIn.
Okay, and it's Xolani Zikalala on LinkedIn.
Yes, that's it. You'll find me quite easily.
Okay, let me put you under pressure. As the last words, imagine this is a tweetable 20-second. You want to give career advice to anybody on that camera, facing that camera, Minang any career advice to close?
You have to be comfortable with discomfort. I think where the world is going to and where we are, if you're going to succeed in any career, if you're going to be relevant, you have to get comfortable with the fact that you will be uncomfortable for the largest part of your career, because there's so much change, so much innovation, and you have to stay on top of it. And one of the ways is to keep yourself knowledgeable about what's happening around you. So discomfort has to be the new norm.
Aye, we are done. There's nothing to say. Wow, where's that poo?
That's all.